Hello, welcome to tonight's webinar on basement flooding and reducing the risk on your property. We had a lot of folks RSVP this evening, so I know folks are continuing to roll in and watching the counter go up. We had over 1,000 people RSVP. So because of that, I'd like to tell you guys just a little bit about our organization before we get into our presentation this evening with Holly. So the Chicago Bungalow Association is a nonprofit delegate agency of the city. We've been around for around 20 years, actually over 20 years. We began in the year 2000, and we have somewhere around 25,000 members at this point. So we've grown and grown and grown. We have around 80,000 bungalows in the city, so we're getting there. But our main mission is to help you maintain, preserve, and adapt your vintage home. So we've expanded actually beyond just Chicago bungalows to all vintage homes, which is any home that's at least 50 years old. You can become a member if your home is at least 50 years old and you're within the city limits. You'll have access to, you continue to have access to our webinars. We have tons of resources online, contractors we recommend, videos, how-to videos, blogs that explain the history of things, and also our how-to resources. We've got weatherization programs that you can apply to only if you're a member. So membership is free. So I recommend checking us out at chicagobungalow.org. You can also find recordings of all of our previous webinars on that website, chicagobungalow.org, including tonight's. We'll have up sometime next week, probably. Yeah, so definitely give us a look. Even if you are not in the city limits or even in Chicago, we've got great resources for you guys. So it's just a little bit about us, but let us get started and get into a little bit about our webinar this evening, and specifically our speaker, Holly. Hi, Holly. Holly Sauter is a principal civil engineer at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. That's MWRD GC, where she manages green and gray infrastructure stormwater projects. She earned her bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Bradley University and her master's degree in public administration. She joined MWRD GC in 2005 and has worked for the tunnel and reservoir plan, the sewer design, real estate, and stormwater departments. Today, Holly is a professional engineer and a certified floodplain manager working in the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Program. She's been working toward the alleviation of urban flooding in the Chicagoland area for the past 10 years. And again, we are recording tonight's webinar. We will send an email out to everybody who registered with a link to that. So anything that you miss that we don't get to this evening after Holly speaks and we do our Q&A, don't worry about it. You'll be able to go back and look for it. Also, that reminds me, sorry, we have a hard stop this evening at 7 p.m. So Holly will present for 30-40 minutes or so, and then we're going to open stuff up for Q&A at the end this evening. So feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box below. The chat should be disabled. So just look at the Q&A box and we'll get to as many as we can before 7. And without it, I think that's about it. So Holly, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good evening. This is the largest crowd I've talked to with no actual face. I am a bungalow owner myself in the near west suburbs, and thank you for having me tonight to give a little bit of background and just some information about the MWRD and flooding and how that could apply for you. Let me start sharing the screen and get the slides going. All right. So really tonight we're here to talk about home ownership, and in the city of Chicago and adjacent communities, it's quite challenging with flooding, and we all know that. We all deal with flooding in various degrees. So we have created what's called the Green Neighbor Guide. You can visit MWRD.org to download a free copy of the information that's in there, and we'll talk about some of that later on. As the intro is, I am Holly Sauter. I am a civil engineer with the MWRD, and I work in the stormwater management department. The MWRD itself was created in 1889 as the sanitary district of Chicago. We're probably all aware the original mission was to protect Lake Michigan and the drinking water. So the reversal of the Chicago River was the original plan and the mechanism that protected the drinking water source of Lake Michigan. We are governed by a 9-member board of commissioners elected at large across Cook County. Our service area is almost 900 square miles. We have 129 communities across Cook County. And in 2021, we treated more than 400 billion gallons of water at the 7 water reclamation plants that we facilitate and own. And while we started out as a wastewater treatment agency, we also took on the management of stormwater management for that service area, that 882 square miles in 2004. This is our board of commissioners. Our president is Carrie Steele. And here is our public affairs, has some fantastic photos of work that was done in the beginning. This was done in 1904. But again, we were established in 1889. And these gentlemen, I believe, are working on the diversion or the reversal of the river. Here's another great photo for you. We essentially took the pollutant that was going into Lake Michigan and having it re-diverted back down towards the Mississippi River and out to the Gulf of Mexico, where it's diluted along the way and obviously treated properly before it's put into those waterways. In the 1890s, the district constructed 61.3 miles of canals that were to move that water away. We completed construction of the sanitary and ship canal, which you'll find adjacent mostly to I-55 in 1900. And the North Shore Channel was done in 1910. And the Cowsag Channel in our southern area was constructed in 1922. The waterways were designed to move that back down towards the south, dilute the water, and head on out eventually to the Gulf. So how do these systems work? How do we collect this wastewater and this sanitary water that's out here? There's a couple different types of storm sewer and sanitary sewer systems within the Chicago area. They're usually called either combined or separated systems. So a combined system will collect water from the streets. It will collect the toilet water that we flush, the kitchen, everything that comes from your home, and then also the storm water that falls onto the streets. It all collects into one system, and it eventually makes its way out through the local systems and to a treatment plant. A separate system is when you have the sanitary lines from your homes and businesses and the storm sewers in the streets completely separate. The storm sewers will usually go towards a receiving water body, and then the sanitary systems will go again to that treatment plant. So in the city of Chicago, it's heavily combined. It's almost all combined. So what that looks like is what you see here, and how that interacts with the MWRD's system is what we're going to talk about here just for a second. So your home has the sanitary line, it drops, and then that sanitary line goes to the street, which is connected to all these other pipes that pick up the storm water. And these local sewers head out down the street and eventually make their way into what we're pointing at here is this middle pipe. It's called an MWRD interceptor. It's the larger pipes that pick up these local systems and send them out to our plant. Now, when we have a very heavy rainfall, and obviously those sewers are filling quickly, the MWRD created the Tunnel and Reservoir Plan, TARP, deep tunnel, you might know it of as well, which is this very large pipe that you see on the lower half of the screen, which we have 109 miles of these pipes, or these large tunnels that range up to like 30 feet in diameter. They're 300 feet deep. And those interceptors will fill up and then fall over into specific structures and down into that tunnel system. Here's a good shot from inside one of those tunnels. These began in the 70s. All of the tunnels are completed, and these eventually make their way to two large reservoirs. One of them is in the southern portion of the county in Thornton, which is along I-80. You've probably seen it. It's completed. The other one is for our western, north, and west area, which goes to the McCook Reservoir, which is currently being constructed. One lobe of that reservoir is currently online, and the second one is still under construction. And then here you can see the 7 water reclamation plants that we have across the county. We have Calumet down in the south region. We have the Lamont water reclamation plant. Up to the north, we have Hanover Park. We have one called John Egan and Curie and the Terry O'Brien, which is on the north side. And then we have Stickney, which is the largest wastewater treatment plant in America. And it's in the Stickney service area right off of I-55. Just to kind of give you some numbers on that, we started building these in the 20s and the 30s, and by 1950, the MWRD is capturing roughly 1 billion gallons of combined sewage and stormwater every day. So there's all this water, and we're collecting it. We're trying to treat as much as we can, and obviously we all know that we're going to go into it, but water is increasing, rain is increasing. We see stronger flood events, intensities are different. So we kind of look at what can the homeowner do to prevent flooding. And one of the first things that we would like to just make sure is that water coming back from that combined system, or is it a seepage issue? So that would be something that you would need to look at your foundation, the repairs that would need to be grouted or lined appropriately to sort of stop that groundwater from infiltrating through your walls. Ponding water to the entries of window wells. If the water gets above the window well and seeps over, that's obviously an unfortunate way that water can get into your home as well, through walkouts and basement doors and any accessible points in the lower entry of the home below grade. Basement drains and showers backing up. Now that would be combined sewer backup or even sanitary sewer backup. You can have your line inspected to make sure that there isn't a clog that's causing issues or constricting that capacity for that water to get out. Another option is to make sure that you look at, if you're still having these issues, a homeowner can come in and do some modifications to their own home, whether it be through overhead sewers, which is a really effective but costly measure. There's also check valves and other methods of installations that a homeowner can do to prevent that sanitary or that combined sewer system from backing up into their home. The other important thing to talk about, and we'll get there too, is that downspouts are not directly connected into your sewer lines or those in the street. So stormwater management, there are various ways that we try to protect our water. One of those was TARP, but we look at how can we take some of that water off of the system to try to give some relief and keep some of those combined sewer backups or even straight sanitary sewer backups from occurring, because the system can be overloaded. This is a graph to show sort of the rising trend for the annual precipitation that I'm sure we all very much have been aware and had some unfortunate issues with. If you look at the last 40 years of rainfall data and compare the previous 40, from 1940 to 1979, we've exceeded our average precipitation in from 1980 to 2020 we've exceeded the average rainfall for 13 out of the last 14 years. And in 2020, if you remember, we set the record for the wettest May in Chicago. So there's obviously some significant trends for intensity and just sheer volume that we're seeing. There's been some recent adaptations to the way that the Illinois State Water Survey has dictated what would be a 100-year storm. You may have heard that term. That just means that there's a 1% chance of an occurrence of a particular type of storm event to happen. So in 1989, it was 7.58 inches of rain in 24 hours was sort of that critical 1% chance of a storm occurring is in that volume. And by 2019, they've reevaluated and reassessed it, and we're now up to almost 8.6 inches. So there's been a significant increase. 1 inch of water it's a lot of water to occur over that time period for that increase, and to take care of that 1 inch of water across the entire service area. So in 2004, the MWRD took over the legislative authority to work on stormwater management and to address all of the issues, or attempt to address all of the issues for stormwater issues across the county. The legislation was approved in 2004, and then MWRD went to work. We created 6 watershed plans. We went to the different watersheds throughout the service area and looked at where the flooding was, and a lot of it riverine, where it comes up, the river comes up out of the banks and does mass flooding that way, and identified projects that we could do that had a cost benefit that was worthy of keeping the project, or really showed that we could help a lot of people in those areas. And what we found was that there's actually a lot of areas outside of the riverine areas that there's tons of urban flooding that are not associated directly with a river event. So in 2013, we got authority to start working on these more localized flooding issues, not the large regional projects that we did with those 6 watershed plans, but really wanted to take it down to the urban flooding level and work through these partnership opportunities with all of the communities that we can. So we do localized projects for green infrastructure, and we also do localized projects for traditional stormwater infrastructure that the communities bring to us and ask for support with. We've also provided master planning for large areas or for serviced communities that need help sort of engaging how to prioritize projects and how to prioritize their funding for those projects for a given set of time for the future. And then we also have a small streams maintenance program where we have a crew of guys who will come out, and if you notice a large log or some obstruction in a waterway, you can call us and we will come out and we'll clean up all of the debris and all the things that are there that shouldn't be there. And you can see in this photo, this is in the McCook area. There was a lot of debris after a storm that just brushed up and came up with the water. And as the water receded, it left a lot of that debris that it picked up along the way. And so they went out and they cleaned it up. And this might be a very hard graphic for you to see, but all of the little dots that you see there are projects that the MWRD has either completed or are in the process of completing across the entire across the entire county and our service area. So talking about green infrastructure, because that's really something that everybody can take and bring back to their home in one way or another. We have communities that have asked for green alleys. And what a green alley is, it's not actually green. What it does is really green infrastructure is looking for the best way to capture water, hold it, and allow it to infiltrate back into the ground instead of allowing it to go into those either separate or combined systems. So here you can see in this community, they have redone alleys because the alleys frequently flood. They have a hard time. And so what they actually do is they come in and they take off the pavement, they dig down and they reinstall a lot of that sub base with aggregate, and then they pave back over it. And the permeable pavers that you see in the center of the alley allow for the stormwater to run off into the alley and then infiltrate through those bricks into the gravel. And then it allows that to give an opportunity to soak back into the ground, keeping it out of the sewer system. To date, we have more than 60 completed green infrastructure projects, and we have 40 or more that are still in progress or coming up here within our program. We've captured over 14.5 million gallons of stormwater per rain event with the installations that we currently have. We've done rain gardens. Rain gardens are also popular among some of the communities. We have one here in Skokie. We have a green roof on our own Racine Avenue pumping station. This is out by Bubbly Creek. And here is a different installation of permeable pavements. This is in Tinley Park, but you can see this is in a high visible area. So they've really done a nice job picking some brick that is aesthetically pleasing, but also more importantly, takes that water and allows it to get back into the earth. In Riverside, we've done a commuter parking lot. These parking lots are very popular. They're also extremely durable if they're maintained properly. And they also did 2 rain garden bioswale areas adjacent to this parking lot to allow for additional water to overflow from the lot into those to allow that water to absorb in. We have rain gardens in Blue Island. These are in front of residents. So some communities like to work with their residents to provide some of that stormwater capture within the parkways in front of homes. And one of our other programs that you may be familiar with, which is with the Chicago Public Schools and the Chicago Department of Water Management, as well as we have two partners with Healthy Schools Campaigns and Open Lands, is we do Space to Grow. So we are 1/3 of the partnership for Space to Grow, which is essentially taking playgrounds like this that you see here and transforming them into much more aesthetically pleasing, but much more serviceable areas for the kids that are also large stormwater parks, but incognito. This one that you see behind me is also a different school that we've done within the Space to Grow program. This is Farnsworth, which is in Jefferson Park. What you see on the soccer field, there's actually quite a bit of that stone aggregate underbase so that this turf that's on top allows the water to flow through, and it sits in that aggregate base and then eventually gets reabsorbed back into the earth. And the beautiful part about it is that the field is never iced over or frozen with ice on top in it, because the water is able to infiltrate and keep that field serviceable. There's also other portions of this area that have that aggregate subgrade, and then we also have some rain gardens in along the sides as well to sort of help promote that infiltration at the school, provide some educational opportunities for the kids, and then just make it's a great win-win for everyone. So the Green Neighbor Guide, those projects that we just went over are kind of like the larger scale projects that the municipality or the neighborhood or the city would really take on, but what can you do, or what can a community do more at your own property? So here's an example of someone who has come in and done a great little rain garden in their backyard. 1 inch of rain across Cook County is approximately 16 billion gallons of water. So every drop of that 16 billion gallons or more, anything that we can keep out of the system is really a benefit to everyone. So an installation like this can really allow the plants to be watered, and to also keep some of that water out of people's homes. You can see they have a rain barrel as well there in the back, which also that rainwater can be reused to water this area if it is a drier time of the year. This is the cover for our Green Neighbor Guide, which again is at MWRD.org. It's got a lot of this information in there if you're looking to go and download that or get some ideas for yourself. We have rain barrels as it's shown. The main culprit for flooding is usually the lack of the storage volume in our system and in your local system. So excess rain just has really nowhere to go. So that's why we're always looking to promote things like this and to help residents kind of learn how to help their own properties as well. This graphic here shows not only a really nice little rain garden along the side of their walkway, but it also shows that if you have a driveway in the future, those permeable parking lots and those alleys that we talked about could even be used on your own driveway. You can see through this cross section here that they have some gravel below what looks to be a permeable paver driveway. They also have a dry well, which is this black like tub in the ground there adjacent to the house. And then in the back, it shows additionally they have some rain barrels attached to their downspouts. So downspout disconnections. This is something that's super important, but always kind of hard to achieve everywhere. Back a long time ago, a lot of downspouts were directly connected to the sewer systems or into a catch basin in the front. All of that roof runoff that comes off of your house and down into those downspouts, if they are connected directly into the catch basin in the front yard or across the street, then obviously all of that water falling on your roof and being captured is going directly into the storm sewer system or the combined sewer system. So downspouts are the easy, like the real big win here is to really just to disconnect those and allow those a good length of your property for the water to flow across and be able to have that opportunity to return back to the earth instead of directly into your sewer system. Here's another example of how those can be done. Certainly, you know, there's things to have to consider, because obviously a lot of water can hurt your grass and things like that. But if you do it appropriately, it'll really allow the water to reabsorb. And we recommend not more than 6 feet away from your home for that end point of that downspout. Rain barrels. Everybody seems to be familiar with rain barrels. They're a great success. We do have a program, it's on the MWRD website, that allows you to purchase a rain barrel for a reduced cost. This is just one sample of what the rain barrels that we have available look like. Simply, you can just disconnect your downspout and connect it right into the top of it like you see there, or some people put them up on blocks a little bit higher to be able to use that water out of the front for irrigation for their property, whether it be for their grass or a vegetable garden, whatever you're using your water for. And a little bit more about our rain barrels. We do have that subsidized rain barrels on our website, as we talked about. The water that's collected through that, because of all the falling and the spilling, it's highly oxygenated, which is great for plants, but they're also watertight. And if you wanted to do a rain barrel and do the installation, this information is in the Green Neighbor Guide, but some of the tools and materials that you would need to install that are listed here. And we have a video on the YouTube on how to install your rain barrel if you need a little more assistance or just a quick tutorial on that. And we do have them in 4 colors like we did. We saw that very light sand color, but we have them in blue, black, and sort of a terracotta color as well. Rain gardens and bioswales. This is something that you can do at your property with a little bit of grading. We can use a lot of plants. Rain gardens are the smaller basins. They allow the stormwater to just kind of sit and soak in. They're designed to drain the ponding water within 24 hours so that obviously we don't want mosquito issues, but then the native vegetation that you would plant within the bottom of that rain garden can survive so that they're not inundated with water for too long. They also will remove pollutants, these native plants that you would put in your rain garden. They take pollutants, they act as water filters, and then they do that through the soil, and then obviously you're putting cleaner water back into the groundwater table. And here are some other tools and information that you would like if you are planning on doing a rain garden. Planting plans, there's a variety. There's just an unendless amount of native plants and other types of plants that are very deep rooted. We really like deep-rooted plants because the deeper the roots go, the more oxygenated, the more aerated the soil becomes. And also those deep-rooted plants just drink a ton of water too, which is great and what you're really looking for. You have to be mindful of the plants that you're choosing because some do better when they're left alone. Some that you can mow and you don't have to worry about. Others are great pollinators. So if you're looking for that monarch butterfly or other types of insects to be able to use your rain garden space, there are different plants for that as well. It's better to plant plugs and not just seeds because they do tend to need a little extra help. So the taller, or at least the plug, has a much better chance. And we typically talk about planting those in the spring or in the fall. They've got some recommendations for taller plants in the center or at the back, and then having those perennials 2 or 3 feet apart. And then you would want the shorter plants at the front so that you can see the aesthetics of everything. There's more information in that Green Neighbor Guide on MWRD.org if you want to dive deeper into trying to create a planting plan for yourself, depending on the space that you have. And then permeable pavement. Very great close-up shot to some of those permeable pavers, similar to those parking lots and that driveway that we talked about before. Essentially, permeable pavement consists of these bricks. There also is permeable concrete and permeable asphalt, if that's something you're interested in. The pavers tend to have a more durable surface for the long haul, and it allows for, again, that large aggregate storage base underneath the paver, and then the paver would have small chip aggregate that goes in between those, and the water would filter through those chips in between each of those bricks. Dry wells are also available in the Green Neighbor Guide. And a dry well is a buried container. We saw that in that overall house view, that black tub that was in the ground. It's a buried container with small holes that allows water to infiltrate into that, or vice versa, you could take your downspout and connect it into something like that, and then let that storm water absorb back out into the earth. Or even your bioswale, if you're worried about water standing in there for too long, you could also have it overflow and back down into one of those dry wells. They're mostly used where there's limited space and you really don't want that water sitting for very too long, if that's something that's of concern. So that's all I have from our Green Neighbor Guide and just a quick overview of the MWRD. I am happy to answer any questions you have. Carla?
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Holly. That was great. A lot of people are really into the green alleys on this thread. So first I wanted to, if you could let us know where to find the Green Neighborhood Guide. Is there a link through the
yes. So if you go to, if you go to MWRD.org, we have a scrolling banner and it should pop into that scrolling banner. And if it doesn't, there's drop downs from services, and I believe it's under there.
Okay, and we can also include that in the follow-up email. So everybody who's on here, you'll get a follow-up email after this if you signed up for tonight, and we can include that link as well. So keep a lookout. We'll probably have that out to you, possibly not until next week, but we'll definitely email everybody with that as well. So and how can people get a green alley in their neighborhood? Because a lot of people are like, you know, they're redoing our alley right now and they're not doing it. It's not green. Why isn't it green? And so, yeah, do you know, is there a list someone can get on or?
Yeah, so as far as the community itself, if they would like to do it, I mean, obviously I would tell anybody to reach out to their local community, whether it's the city, to your alderman's office, or to your community if you're not in the city. The MWRD itself helps fund those green alleys that are in through a partnership program with the municipality. So we would need, for us to be able to help fund a green alley like that, we would require them to come to us through our application program, where they've identified what green alleys they're interested in installing, and give us a little bit of information like the flooding in the area and how much volume they'd like to capture, and then kind of the cost share that they're looking for from us.
Okay. A lot of people also were wondering if you could recommend specific contractors, and you know, what would the also like what kinds of contractors, like who could diagnose something accurately and who might be able to actually do the work
for like your personal sewer line to see if there's issues with it. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, if you've got basement flooding, like to be like, where is the water coming in? You know, and then who to actually remedy that, regardless, you know, whether it's coming up or if it's coming through the foundation.
Sure. So you should be able to, hopefully you should be able to tell if it's coming through the walls of your home. I mean, you should unfortunately see, you know, water, feel it damp. If you have drywall or any paneling, then you may notice, you know, some seepage in specific areas. But it's pretty obvious when you have basement backup, because it will come through floor drains, the lowest point. So if you have floor drains, it will come up through there first. If that's capped, or you have no floor drain that's available for usage, then it may come out of a toilet or a laundry sink. Anything connected to the sewer, right, is where it's going to come up and bubble up. So in those instances, really, it's good to call a plumber, a sewer plumber, to try to get your line televised, just to make sure that everything's good. You don't have a break in your sewer line. And just make sure that there's nothing wrong there. It's relatively inexpensive to the security, or, you know, the knowledge that there's nothing wrong with your line. But beyond that, installing basement backup protection systems, there are a few different opportunities or a few different varieties for people to install, depending on your budget, depending on your comfort level. And it's really important to probably talk to a sewer plumber about something like that. A traditional house plumber probably isn't going to have the same capacity to do those services, but those bigger plumbing and sewer guys
Okay.
come out and give you some options.
And on our website as well at chicagobungalow.org, we have a section called Trusted Referrals. You can look around in there. We separate everything by category. So there's some contractors in there as well. Let's see. Can you use standpipes or plug floor drains in home basements to prevent sewer backups, or would that crack the underground clay pipe and concrete floors?
So, excuse me. At my old house, I actually had a standpipe because I suffered from sewer backup, and I know how horrible it is to clean and to take care of. Standpipes can work, yes. As far as capping your floor drain, I would say that that's something that you would have to be very careful about for a variety of reasons. I don't see as far as I'm aware now, you should always talk to a plumber. I am not the be-all expert on everyone's home, but standpipes I have seen in a lot of homes, but obviously they don't have the security factor to them the way a built-in protection system would.
Okay. And I just want to remind everybody, we have till 7. So if you're plunking in a bunch of questions now, we're probably not going to be able to get to a lot of these tonight. So I'll try to group together like common questions that we're seeing a lot of, but just something to be aware of. We have a bunch of people also asking, like, they're sort of like, okay, so my downspout is disconnected, so it's not going directly into the sewer system anymore, but there's nowhere to run it. And we see that, like, obviously a ton with bungalows. You've got these tightly packed lots and, these gateways in between. I know that there's also a mention of a French drain in here as well. Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, so if rain barrels are something that you'd be willing to consider, it's at least a good starting point to sort of capture that. I know that it's tight, but at least it sort of eliminates that water running along a gangway and then freezing during the winter. That's obviously problematic and you don't want that. But trying to direct it into what green space you do have. The rain garden is obviously another location. But really it is a hard thing to do, but rain gardens and particularly the rain barrels at least will capture most of that to begin with, and they won't be lying across property and causing tripping hazards and things like that. Yeah, it's
tricky because you've got just like the concrete on this very long lot. So we've had people also like bust up that concrete and put stone, like little stone sort of walkways, also permeable pavers, of course. And to pitch towards the center if possible. Sometimes they have the ability to do that, helps a little bit too.
Another option is also like you were talking about, you can just dig a little bit, obviously call Julie, make sure there's nothing out there. You can dig down enough to be able to put that black corrugated flexible pipe underground and take it out 5-6 feet from your property or wherever you can get to grass, and then you just turn it up and make it flush with the ground, so that when the water comes down, the downspout will at least go under, and then it'll just bubble out and then onto the grassed area.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also, we say be friendly with your neighbor, because if you share that space in between, you want to, it's a lot easier to deal with, and you can sort of split the cost sometimes on these things too. Let's see. U.S. waterproofing or Permaseal, will they help with basement flooding? And if so, which company would you recommend?
So those two companies are, as far as I know, they specialize in the waterproofing for seepage related issues. I am unclear as to if they have basement backup, like your sewer backup protection. They might. I couldn't recommend one or the other, but they're definitely a good avenue to at least start your pursuit for, is it seepage? If it's seepage, if they could help you, and if it's not, they may have some alternatives for that backup.
And somebody had responded to that, it looks like, saying that they US Waterproofing quoted $7,000 just to put in a new sump pump. So it's a little pricey, but yeah. I'm not sure. Let's see. So somebody from Portage Park asking what the changes were to the system that caused the recent basement flooding over there to be so bad. I'm not sure that there were.
No,
yeah.
Again, it's a very dynamic system, and that's something that I'm hoping everybody kind of gets from this, is that the local systems collect everything that you have and they make their way to our system, right? So there's a variety of systems that all may be undersized. So and again, rainfall intensity, it can be so quick that it just causes those essentially flash floods, but urbanized flash flooding.
Yeah. Are there any resources or programs that you know of for replacing concrete with permeable surfaces or rain gardens, or, sort of anything that can help, keep that water out of the system? And I think that it means in terms of like some sort of like things are free, or there's some sort of, funding around that.
Sure. I'm assuming for homeowners on property, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not aware of any right now besides our subsidized rain barrels. They're very low cost. But as far as rain gardens and permeable pavers, I'm not aware of anything right now for the homeowner.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. The city would do things periodically in the past, but I can't think of anything offhand right now either.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Okay, when the city restricts water to the drains and the house has check valves installed, what will happen with the water flow? Will it be redirected? So,
sorry,
yeah.
say it again. So can we break that down?
Sure, sorry. So I
know
think
you're good.
when there's check valves installed, so that it doesn't come into your house, they're just wondering what actually happens to the water. Like, where does it go?
So depending on the basement backup protection system that you do have in the home, there's a couple different things that could happen. Simple check valves, you may want to reduce your water usage during a heavy storm because it's only it's a flap gate system, right? So if the water is pushing against the back of it, you may not be able to force the water out as quickly or as efficiently as you would like to. So you might, and honestly, for everyone, whether you have basement backup issues or not, I always try to remind people to try to limit your laundry, your toilet flushing, your showering, any major water, dishwashing, please limit that or try to refrain until after the storm is over, just to allow that capacity for the basic necessities of life that we're all in. But depending on the system, overhead sewers, they're very costly, but you're always protected and you can use them as necessary. And then there's a couple other steps along the way in between an overhead sewer and a simple check valve or even a standpipe that allow you to still function during a storm without any backup concerns.
I just wanted to highlight this because we had some rain barrel questions too, and somebody had asked if you can use a rain barrel without connecting to the downspout because their barrel fills up way too easily. And I know of a few, some ways to sort of deal with that, but also somebody had responded that they bought a few 30-gallon plastic containers from Home Depot for about $11 a container. They cut an opening in the lid and attached a screen to filter out the debris, which I thought was pretty great. I know you can also connect.
You can do multiple rain barrels connected to each other if that's an issue that you have. And I mean, these rain barrels that we provide are 55 gallons. So, I mean, that can fill pretty quickly in a good storm. So they can be connected in tandem so that they just don't overflow.
Right. Which I thought was amazing the first time I saw it. For some reason, it seems so brilliant to me when it's such a basic thing. Okay, and kind of going off of that, is it legal now in the city of Chicago to have a cistern of stormwater underground and attach it to the house for gray water?
You're asking?
Yes.
Oh, that's city code. I'm sorry, I'm not very
I don't
stayed on my
think it's
city
legal
code.
yet. Yeah, I know there was a big push for it years back to make that legal again. And I don't think so either, but yeah, good. It's a good question and would be helpful. Somebody else was curious about, in terms of putting pervious pavers in their parking lot, in a parking lot or a driveway. Is that something that a homeowner or a building could just hire a contractor to do? Or does it have to be, I don't think it would have to be done through MWRD, but are there specific contract, like what kind of a contractor would do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of brick and paver and also just traditional contractors that are out there doing surfaces like a lot of the asphalt contractors that you may hire for your driveway, odds are they also have the capacity to do something like that. And if they don't, they would probably be able to kick you over to somebody or even a paver or company that might want to do your patio. They might have some capacity to do a driveway as well. You would just need to make sure that they're not just doing the brick layer. If you're interested in the green aspect of it or the stormwater capture aspect of it, you would want to make sure that they're also providing that depth of aggregate under those pavers to allow for that water to sit in there.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody asked if they connect their downspout, how do you cover the hole? Are there caps for that?
Connect the downspout to,
if they disconnect the downspout, if it's going directly into the sewer system, and there's like that.
You mean keeping it at the where it was pulled out,
right? Like at the ground level.
Yeah, they usually just put some brick pieces and some concrete mortar on the structure where that hole was.
Okay, and can a homeowner do that, or do you need someone to kind of come out and help you with that?
Probably the city would probably want to be part of that because that's technically their structure, right?
Okay, is that Department of Buildings that you'd call for that?
It should be the Department of Water Management.
Water Management, okay. Okay, let's see. Sorry, more keep coming in. Some of that is I want to group them together. But let's just keep going around to rain barrels. When taking down the rain barrel for winter, how should you address the downspout? Do you need to install a temporary downspout, or is the winter precipitation low enough to just let the downspout hang free?
Well, I mean, it's up to you how you want to handle the rain barrel. I probably wouldn't leave the downspout hang free because you probably just wouldn't want all that precipitation to fall and freeze. Might be nice if you had a piece of that black flexible pipe that you could just at least put out far enough to keep it off of your walkways for safety during the winter, if that's possible for you, or leave the rain barrel attached and with the spigot open all the time so that it never completely fills up.
Yeah. Just to go back in case there's some concern about when we were talking about the gangway and having permeable pavers on the gangway or rocks or something like that instead of just poured concrete slabs. There's just concern about like, won't that cause pressure against your foundation or seepage?
Yeah, so that's one very important thing that we do with the alleys as well, and it would apply to your home. There's about a 10 feet barrier that you would really want between any deep aggregate subgrade if you have a basement adjacent to your structure. So that's why we recommend, the downspouts go at least 6 feet out to take that water away so it's not falling right next to your building. You don't want that to cause seepage, right? So the same thing would be applied with if you have a driveway adjacent to your property, your structure, or a gangway. For about a 10 feet length adjacent or anywhere 10 feet from the edge of the building, you'd want to put a waterproof liner under that just to make sure that the water doesn't press up against.
Okay, so just breaking up that alley gangway then and doing that, if it's like a really tight packed block, could cause you some issues then.
Yeah, as long as you're 10 feet away from the building, you should be fine. And even if you do
right
that,
on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
even if you do it up against there and you line that on the sides of where the buildings are, it would still have an open aggregate surface for the water to go out to the ends, right, where there is no structure conflict.
Okay, so
for it to be able to infiltrate at the ends, right?
Okay.
But you definitely would want some sort of liner system near the structure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Who can we ask to find out if a dry well is the right choice for our property? And are there any cost assistance programs around them that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I would look at the Green Neighbor Guide for some direction on what might work best for your property. It's going to have some information on what comes with it, what the positives, negatives, and if it's something that fits with your style, right?
Okay. Somebody here brought up, they'd asked about French drains, which you already sort of touched on, but forgive me if you made this point at some point, because I was kind of checking out the questions, so I miss things periodically, but did you talk at all about grading the land, like the soil away from your home too, to make sure that the water's not getting into your foundation?
No, but that's an excellent point. Obviously, like anytime we grade anything, we want it high adjacent to the structure and some sort of slope, if at all possible, away from the property for sure. And those rain gardens or bioswales or whatever, that if you were interested in putting those in, are a perfect place to just completely regrade your property to flow that way.
Yeah. And we generally tell folks to just kind of have the soil slope away, have the soil go to just like right above the foundation line, and then slope down. It's going to keep changing. Yeah. You have to kind of be diligent about it, but it actually makes a huge difference in keeping water out. So,
it does.
All right, let's see. We're at 7 o'clock. Maybe one more question, and then we can wrap this up tonight. Let me see. So let's see, how far do you recommend placing a rain garden away from the front of your house? So is that a 10-foot rule kind of again, or is it?
Yeah, ideally you would want it, that at least that 6 to 10 foot away from the house, just to, if we're storing water, not in a vessel of any kind, then we would want to have that buffer away from the structure. If you have a basement, which we almost all do, in this area, to keep that water from causing any seepage issues. Yeah.
Okay, great. And again, we'll send out a link to the Green Neighbor Guide. And Holly, thank you so much. We got through almost 40 questions. so those were duplicates granted, but thank you for that rapid fire session. I really appreciate it. Anything else you wanted to add before we click off this evening?
No, I just thank you again for having us. I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime you need it. And I'm sure that you can provide my contact information or a public affairs office too. They have great resources if you can't find what you're looking for in the Green Neighbor Guide.
Great. We'll put that in the email too. Thanks everybody for listening in tonight. This will be recorded. This is being recorded, so we'll have it on our Facebook page and on our website as well, as in the email that's going to go out to y'all afterwards. So thanks again, Holly, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.